Welcome to our first Sydney Design Thinking for 2023. To kick off the year, we're focusing on designing for inclusion. We're lucky to have Kate, who's the head of design at Thoughtworks, and Agnes, who's the founder and CEO of Travengers, share a bit of their story. Just to kick off, I want to acknowledge that we're on Gadigal country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. A big thanks as well to our sponsors. So big thanks to Thoughtworks. They've been a long-time sponsor and supporter since 2015, and welcoming on board a new sponsor for tonight, Tech Talks, which is powered by 420. Thanks a lot for your support. We've also got our organising team. So Kate is part of our organising team, as well as Zoe, who are here tonight, and as well as Lucas, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. And of course, a massive thanks to our members. The community's grown over the last more than 7 years, coming up to 8 years. We're now a community of over 8,500 members. And thanks for everyone who keeps turning up, both in person and online.
And tonight's session's been recorded, so we will at some point hopefully get it onto our Facebook page. And look at all of those nice stars. So if you like tonight's meetup, and then Meetup sends you that message going, how many stars are you giving it? We get to see it. 5 is a good answer, but honest answers are even better. And we're always looking to improve, so let us know how we can improve as well. So we've got 2 awesome speakers tonight. We've got Kate from Thoughtworks, and we have Agnes from Travengers. So I'll introduce them both individually, but first up, we have Kate, who's the head of design of Thoughtworks, which is whose place we're in. And I've been lucky to hang out with Kate and work with her, organising SydDT since 2015. And it's awesome. But I'll let you share more about you and your story and what you get up to. Over to you.
Oh, I need that thicker. Yes, you'll actually be hearing a bit about Thoughtworks tonight because this is the story of our rebrand. And I know some of you have been coming to Thoughtworks, to these events, to the Design Thinking Meetup over the years, and you probably noticed the rebrand because we have a new logo, amongst other things. And so I wanted to tell that story, but through the lens of inclusive design and accessibility, which we often don't think about when we think about branding, but it was a huge consideration for us. I gave this talk at Web Summit late last year. If anyone went to the Web Direction Summit, haven't given it since. So hopefully I remember the story, but I lived it because I actually led the team that did the redesign. We did it all in-house. So just to begin with, because this story is all about branding, I just want to touch upon what a brand really is. And I like to think about brand as people's perception of you, of your product, of your company. It's their perception of you. It's not what you want them to think. It's what they actually think and feel and experience with your brand. That's what brand is. So as a brand designer, you do have some control over it, but you don't have total control. And the other thing about brand perception is that a lot of people experience a brand in a very different way because 15% of the population have a permanent disability. And that's going to affect the way they perceive your brand. So it's a huge consideration when you're thinking about brand design. So just a little bit about me. I personally don't have a disability, but I do wear glasses. And visual impairment is pretty common in society. So 75% of adults have a visual impairment. It could be astigmatism, short-sighted, long-sighted, actually gets worse with age. If you're my age, if you're over 50, it's pretty much everyone. Now, when you're thinking about brand design, that is huge. That's a huge percentage of the population. And when you're young and fresh out of GA or university, you don't always think about this. You tend to go for beautiful, subtle colours and subtle typography. And it's because you've got 20/20 vision. You don't need to think about how people who need glasses are going to perceive your brand. So it's a different way to think about things. The other thing about glasses is the World Health Organization does not consider all of these mild visual impairments to even be a disability. And the reason for that is because we can fix it. There's so much technology to fix your vision, glasses, surgery, so you can get by pretty well. So the way they define disability is when it really gets in the way of your ability to get by in the world and to engage with work and life. So still a major consideration though for branding. Now this talk's pretty short, but I do need to tell you a little bit about Thoughtworks so that you understand the design challenge that we had when we went about the rebrand, because we did it all in-house. We have a global team of marketing designers, and we did our own rebrand. So I'm going to talk a bit about the challenge that we had with inclusivity, because we have a lot of people with permanent disabilities at Thoughtworks. And I'm going to explain how we're solving that problem, because we're not finished. We still have it. We're never going to be perfect at this. We're still learning. So first, a little bit about Thoughtworks. So we're a technology consulting company. We build software, apps, mobile sites, core banking platforms, and we do that through strategy, design, and delivery. We're in 19 countries and almost 50 offices. So we're a pretty diverse group of people, a lot of different languages. And given that we know 15% of the population have permanent disabilities, that translates to roughly 2,700 thought workers who have a permanent disability. Now, that doesn't include people like me that just need glasses. These are disabilities that force them to adjust the way that they engage with the world. Now, the reason why that's important is these are the people who use our brand every single day. They are the power users of the brand. So they use all of our internal apps and templates and internal products. They're surrounded by the brand whenever they're at work. So they're our primary user group. A little bit more about Thoughtworks. In terms of our strategic goals, we have around 5, and 2 of them are specifically related to diversity and inclusivity. And so the first one, it's on our website, you can see it yourself. We foster a vibrant community of diverse and passionate technologists. So it's right there in the goal. We're not there yet, but just this week we published that we now have 40% of our people are women and underrepresented gender minorities. And for a technology company, that's pretty good. Amongst that, we also hire a whole range of different racial backgrounds, but also people with disabilities. So we have hiring programs to ensure that we are hiring people with permanent disabilities. Just in Brazil alone last year, we hired 30 people with permanent disabilities. And that's to ensure that we have a good, healthy mix of diverse individuals working for us. So the reason why we do that as well, it's not just because it's the right thing to do, it's also because we really believe it gives us an advantage. So we really believe that diverse teams are better. They're more effective. When you can create a sense of psychological safety where people can come as their true selves to work, and where we accept different backgrounds, races, different experience, then you've got a better team. And they will be more creative. They'll take risks with their ideas. They'll just be more successful. So it gives us an advantage, we believe. Now, the second strategic goal is to amplify social change and advocate for an equitable tech future. So that word equitable, that's all about equal access to technology. So it's kind of all there. We really want to be inclusive, not just for thought workers, but for our clients and external networks. So 2 years ago, we joined this group, the Valuable 500, which is a global group of companies. We're joined by Google and Apple and Microsoft, and they're all committed to disability inclusion. So we joined that group, signalling to the world that we want to be better at this. And it was pointed out to us when we put the press release on our website that our website's not very accessible. And we thought, oh, well, we're going to need to fix that. And as it turned out 2 years ago, we knew that we were going to be doing a rebrand. We were rebuilding our website anyway. So it was good timing to address this problem head on. So how did we go about doing that? Well, we decided we'd talk to our own people first. So the people who actually have disabilities, permanent disabilities, we interviewed them just to understand what their experience was like. And this is Matthew. He's actually spoken at a Sydney Design Thinking meetup event. He's profoundly deaf from birth, and he is totally reliant on things like closed captions on video calls. And so we spoke to people like Matthew to understand how they engage with their teams and how they get by at work and what their biggest beef was in terms of accessing technology. And, you know, they spoke about things like when you share information online digitally and you put the text into an image, that's just really bad for accessibility. Firstly, you can't translate it into another language, and you can't access that text if you're vision impaired. That's a real problem. So little things like that. For me personally, interviewing these 30 people, my biggest insight is that people with permanent disabilities are really resilient. Like, they're the heavy lifters. They do all of the hard work to engage with the world. They're not asking that much from us, but as designers, and colleagues, we just need to be better at a few things because they're the ones doing all the hard work. So that was incredibly insightful, just to do that research up front of our rebrand. But what do you do with all of that information? So normally when you go out and you do your discovery and you understand your users, you put together personas and segments, and it's very easy to fall into this trap of designing for the average user. It's thinking about segments in a very broad way. And the problem with that approach is the more you speak to real people, you realise there's no average users here. They're all unique. Some of them have permanent disabilities. Some of them have temporary disabilities. Some of them are just old like me, don't have great eyesight. And some of them are really distracted, just distracted all the time. And that's kind of all of us. This is kind of a separate talk, but We are so distracted by screens. I mean, how many of you have just surreptitiously checked your mobile phone in the last few minutes? It's so addictive. And that distraction is kind of like being drunk or stoned. You know, you wouldn't turn up to work drunk or stoned, or maybe some people do, but we allow ourselves to be distracted all the time. So as designers, you need to design for that. You need to acknowledge, like when we do user testing at work, I encourage participants to leave their mobile phone out on the table. If you need to take a call, take a call, because that's the most realistic way you see what they're really experiencing when they're trying to engage with your brand. You never have their full attention. So one last point. This approach to design is really about designing for the stress cases. If you can design for those people who have a permanent disability or just distracted all the time, if you can design for those people and make the experience good for them, it'll be better for everyone. So that's what we call the inclusive design approach. If you're going to waste time on user testing, do it with those people, because it'll just improve the experience for everyone. Now, we knew we had a problem. We knew we had to get better. We're a digital brand. We exist online. Our website is our primary channel to the world. And so we knew that we needed to fix this. And we also knew, because Thoughtworks has been around for, this year it'll be 30 years. We're pretty familiar with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. Now, back at the dawn of the internet, Tim Berners-Lee decided that the internet would be accessible. It was always the intention that everyone would have equal access. That was his vision. And that was why back in the 90s, he set up the Web Accessibility Initiative. And they put out WCAG. They updated, I think we're up to version 2.21. It's been around forever. This is the Bible. But like any Bible, no one reads it. It's really detailed. Like, so we sort of knew this stuff, but we just weren't using it. We weren't systematically applying it. Somehow we'd lost sight of the original intention. And so we went back to WCAG and we summarized the things that were most important for us. So we created our own checklists, we updated our processes, but we went back to basics. So this was our website 2 years ago. A lot of people use this website, so literally tens of thousands of people. This is how people first discover who we are. It's through the website. If they want a job here, they'll go to the website. If they want to find out what we can do. So it's pretty important. Now you'll notice this is 2 years ago. It's got our old logo on it and sort of looks okay. But this was the score that we got from a little automated tool. It's a free tool called Lighthouse. Anyone can use it. It's not perfect because it's just an automated tool. The best way to test any digital content is manually, but there's like 10,000 pages on our website, so we were never going to do that. But you can see 81%. That's not terrible. It's just not great. It's not. Given our objectives, that strategic vision that I told you about, we knew we couldn't have a mediocre accessibility on our primary channel to the world. So we needed to get better at that. Now, these are some of the common problems on the website. These are some of the common problems for all digital content. These are extremely common problems. So the first one is all over the website, there was hard to read text, like it's really bordering on illegible. And here you can see an example. That's the H1, it's on a photo. We do that all the time, don't we? We put text on photos, but sometimes photos are too pale and it's not great. So really common problem. Also, just the fonts we were using. So we're using a font called Open Sans. You probably all know it if you're into typography. There was two problems with this font. First one is everybody uses it. It's so common. It's just really hard to differentiate your brand if you're using a really common font like that. The other problem is that it's a beautiful font. It's a really big font family. It goes from Open Sans Light, which is really delicate and light and impossible to read if it's smaller than 18 point, through to Open Sans Black. So we were using that light for our body copy and really hard to read. It was a problem. The other problem was accent colour. So that bubblegum pink that was on our links and our buttons all over the website, it was our old accent colour. It actually didn't pass the colour contrast tests that you need to pass to make AA accessibility, which is what we were going for. So yeah, a few problems. The other problem, which is not unique to us, is we work in technology and we just talk this language of jargon and acronyms, and it's really alienating. And it just introduces this cognitive load into conversations and into all of our content. It's kind of arrogant to talk like that because, if you're as smart as me, you'll understand what I'm saying. So that's a huge problem, but it's also a problem for screen readers. Now, screen readers is the technology that a lot of people with disabilities rely on. And when screen readers, like Apple VoiceOver, encounter acronyms, they don't know it's an acronym. So API would just be API. So it's just not great to litter all of your content with acronyms. So we had to update our writing guidelines to address this, and we're still not good at this. This is just a huge problem if you work in technology. So we redesigned the logo. We actually used Helvetica New for the logo, nice legible font, and we modified it heavily with that angled 27-degree angle, because when we launched the brand, we'd been in business 27 years. And we customized the font a bit. So that pink oblique at the start, the mark in the logo, that sort of reminiscent of HTML and URLs, but also progress leading into it. So that was a new logo. And then we had to address the colour palette. So we had this really bright, colourful colour palette previously because we're a colourful company. We're just not a black and white kind of brand, even though black and white is the ultimate way to have contrast. It was just never going to work for us. But it was a big bloated colour palette, and a lot of those colours are just really poor when it comes to contrast when you want to use them with fonts. So we simplified that a lot, and now we've just got 8 colours, and we darkened all the colours. And we spent a lot of time on those colours identifying the appropriate point size where you could actually use them for text. So, this is ImpactX, our design system that we created. And we spent a lot of time identifying how we could use these colours and still pass an accessibility test. And the flamingo, which is our primary accent colour, that particular one was really problematic because we wanted to use that for our links and our buttons. We didn't just want to be black and white, but it just didn't work anywhere smaller than 18 point. And so in the end, after lots of trial and error, we got to dark flamingo, which actually gets a AAA score at a certain point size. So we solved that problem. Fonts, we replaced Open Sans with 2 fonts. Bitter Bold, which apparently is also quite common. Ben told me he uses it all the time, but having 2 fonts actually is a little bit differentiating. So the Bitter Bold, we just use as our display font. So it's just used in headlines. It's, apart from being a web font, Bitter and Inter, which became our body copy font, they're variable fonts. So that means you can adjust them to be as bold or as light or as angled and italicized as you want. So they're quite good if you want to differentiate your brand. The other thing was we just increased the font size. So to meet AA accessibility, you need 16 point for your body copy. We pumped that up to 18 point. So that's the new site. And you'll see that the other thing we introduced was illustration as part of our brand. Thoughtworkers are really excited about that because previously we just had photos. And we, on this particular day, got 100% on the automated test. I say on this particular day because people are uploading content multiple times a day. So if you check today, probably not 100%. This is why it's a journey. It's just, we'll never be perfect at this. One thing we did, because we were using lots of illustrations, a lot of those illustrations are really abstract and just fun. They're not literally depicting information or anything like that. In that sort of scenario, when you've got a team of over 100 marketers, they shouldn't have to describe that image. It's perfectly acceptable to have a null alt text field on that image. That just means that screen readers will ignore that image altogether and not waste anyone's time. So in AEM, the content management system, we gave our marketers this little gift that, you know, if your image is abstract, don't waste your time trying to describe it. So the design is one thing, but implementation is where the real work happens. And that's just ongoing work. So we knew that we had to educate our people, we had to change our process, and we had to introduce new tools. So we created an awareness program from those interviews that we did with our own thought workers. We trained over 100 marketers on accessibility. We created the handbook for them, what every marketer should know about accessibility. And so we did that to just help them along when it came to uploading content, because this is where most of the content on the site is coming from. In terms of the process, you really need to include people with disabilities into your process. It's not enough just to use automated tools or do a manual accessibility test. You need to test with people with disabilities. And luckily, we have access to those people. I spoke about automated testing, manual testing. We also introduced an accessibility check into the content management workflow. So no content can be published unless someone trained on accessibility approves it. So literally goes in, reads the alt tags and checks that it complies. And lastly, just some of the tools. Most of these tools are free. So, you know, you can download them. My favorite is Totally. It's just a little app that I use in Chrome, and it's super easy to use. But apart from, I think, Axe, most of these other tools are free. You know, Apple VoiceOver comes with your devices. It's worth just going into your settings and turning Apple VoiceOver on, so you can have a look at your website or your app, see how it performs when you've turned on your accessibility tools. It's quite eye-opening to experience it the way someone with a visual impairment would experience your app. So just lastly, what can you do today to start thinking about accessibility with your own content? So 2 things. Firstly, social media. Almost all the social media platforms make it easy for you to include alt text on your images. And it actually forces you to pause before you put an image up and think, why? Why am I sharing this image? What's in it? Why would people want to see this image? So write the alt text, describe the image. It's quite a good process. The other thing is just install one of those free browser tools, one of those screen readers or automated accessibility testing tools. They're easy to use. My favorite by Khan Academy is Totally. And yeah, it'll start to change the way you design your products. So that's it. That's our brand story. Did anyone have any questions? We've probably got a couple minutes. Do we have any time? Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, you know, Thoughtworks, we're a big company, we can afford to do this, although we don't a lot of the time. So how would a small company have the resources and time to do this? What's the argument for doing it? So firstly, smaller startups, you're in a much better position to get it right first time. We talk about shifting accessibility left. Do it as early as possible. If you can make it part of your default mode, then you're going to improve the experience, not just for 15%, but for all of your customers. It's going to make it better. We don't usually frighten our clients with the fear of getting sued and having your brand dragged through the mud because you are in the news and you've discriminated against people with this. We don't resort to that because that's not a nice conversation, and it shouldn't be the reason why you're doing the right thing. It's more just, you know, if you're a small startup, you're in a great position to do this. Get it done early and it'll cost way less than thinking about it when your product is already out there.
A question from Devinder is, how do you measure success factors for this type of design?
So it depends what you're measuring. So if you're measuring the accessibility, then that's relatively easy to measure because you've got great automated tools that will go part of the way. So that's an easy way to check. If your target is AA, then you can check that. And you can also do manual testing, which is way more effective, but more time consuming. So that's how you can measure your success. So if the question's just about measuring that, it's totally doable and the tools are there. Yeah, that's a good question. So the question, just to repeat it, is
it's basically not to
Thoughtworks to accept abstract illustration as part of our brand architecture, because we'd never had it before. It'd always been literal photography. which we still have. We have photography as well. Strangely, it was easy because the marketing design team have been working with this brand for 8 years. This is our second brand refresh. So there's actually a huge amount of respect for the design team. And the other thing was the illustrations, people loved them. It was so easy to persuade them to use illustration. So yeah, that side was strangely simple. Persuading them to redesign the logo, that was a different story. Cool. Yeah, so just to repeat that question, so our job is never done when it comes to accessibility. What are our future plans for the accessibility? And this is just something that we're continually trying to push for, that goal and we're not there yet, of having all of our digital channels, not just the website, but our social media, all of it, achieving accessibility standards that we've set for ourselves. So there's not one single goal, but we've introduced, for all new marketers, they're now inducted into the accessibility process and the handbook. And so, we've done things like that. And we will continue to do testing of the website and monitoring it. So not really new plans, just more of the same.
Thank you, Kate. Lots of awesome insights in there, and great to hear the reality that it's a journey. It's never perfect and it's never finished. So, and I think it's awesome that, especially a company of Thoughtworks size, taking that on with such great ambition. Inclusive design, universal design, it's better for all of us. So stoked to hear that's happening. It's now time for Agnes and I to have a little fireside chat. Before we do that, just want to say it's awesome to see, I think we've got about a dozen or so people on Zoom. So we're getting few faces and a few questions, and Zoe wants to be on Zoom also. And also want to say a big thanks to our volunteers for tonight, who hopefully you met at the door and have a chat with. So we've got Jose, Susie, Anna is in the room now, there she is, and Sude as well. So thank you very much for volunteering and helping us out, and a huge thanks to Susan Wolf for wrangling her GA students and bringing them in. She always does a great job in helping us spread the word and finding volunteers. So plenty more to come. So now it's time for Agnes and I to have a chat. So we're going to bring some seats out. Won't be a sec.
I didn't take your favorite seat, did I? Yeah.
And everybody hear Agnes if I shut up.
Can you hear me? Oh, wow. Mix are great. No one ever hears me. I might wear this permanently.
Awesome. So great to hang out.
Yeah.
So Agnes, CEO and co-founder of Travengers, and Agnes is going to share her story of Travengers. Looking forward to lots of awesome insights and things you've learned on the journey so far. Celebrating 3 years.
Yes.
Thoughtworks 30, different stages in the business organizational journey. So it'll be interesting comparing some of that and hearing a bunch about what you've been up to.
Mm.
So I first met you, I think it was 2020.
Yeah.
When
really?
it was the Macquarie Kickstarter. Was that 20 or 21?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Back in the day. And then through the Social Enterprise Council, and then our bus tour up to the Social Enterprise World Forum in September.
Mm.
So I'm number 25 and Agnes is number 24. And that was 15. I don't think we have any more bus trippers in the room, but we're all numbered off in the bus. So as we got on and off, we had to know our number and know the number before us and the number after us. So that was our roll call. So we got to hang out a fair bit. It's been fun.
Nice.
Well, it's fun for me anyway.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself. So that's
he's a party animal. Everyone.
that's news to everyone.
But I actually met you before I launched Travengers, because I was here at this event, and one of the speakers, she was talking about disability, and I went up to her afterwards. And
was
got
that
a
Laura?
coffee with her. Yeah,
that was
yeah,
a social
yeah.
enterprise
Yeah.
topic. That's right.
Yeah, and I got a coffee with her, and she prompted me to just go for it, just do it. And I did
Awesome.
it.
See, SydDT, bringing people together and keeping them together. So tell us the story of Travengers. What is it? Who's it for?
Yeah. So to explain what we do and why, let's go back to COVID. No one could travel. Everyone was stuck at home, couldn't see your mates, go to the bar, hang out with anyone else in family or housemates or whatever your living situation was. And that was my sister's situation the whole time. She's autistic, and she didn't have a social network. She didn't have access to things like travel. She didn't have a job, didn't have support in school and all those things. So that feeling that we went through then, there's a lot of people who has that feeling quite a lot, and quite often. But yeah, so Travengers is a travel company for young autistic adults. We help young people connect socially through social events and travel, kind of like Contiki with support. That's how I like to describe it. So yeah, we travel around Australia and now overseas. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's a quick snapshot in case anyone who doesn't know Travengers and isn't already following them on socials, which you will be after this. So hopefully that's a quick context and snapshot. And other than coming to SydDT in, I think that was 2019, what's the origin story? How did you decide this is the thing to do? And why has Zoe got her hand up?
Share the mic.
No, she's got a mic. It's a lapel mic. And is everyone okay hearing? We've got all thumbs. So anyway, back to you.
I'm not being very accessible. Yeah.
So what's the origin story of all the ways you could spend your time? Why Travengers?
Yeah, so I come from a deserted island in the north of Norway. It's not a lot of people there, but I grew up with a godfather with Down syndrome. He was very close to me. He sadly passed away 2 months ago. But he, so ray of sunshine, and I ended up studying disability nursing. And while I was studying, my sister got her autism diagnosis. And that was an explanation to, yeah, why she was different and why she didn't fit in or wasn't accepted. And I got really passionate about it. So I wrote my bachelor's thesis about supporting young autistic people. Yeah, and I continued working in that space, and I met others like her struggling with the same thing. And then I moved over here 5 years ago now to work in disability for 6 months. That was the plan. And yeah, and when I was here, I met a couple other young guys who was also in that same situation. Couldn't find the social network. Were just, when they tried making friends, people were laughing behind their backs. Couldn't get a job, all that stuff again. And he loved traveling. Like, he just wanted to have a girlfriend and yeah, go traveling with friends. And I started looking for it, like for him to help him, and I couldn't find anything. And it really frustrated me, like, why doesn't this exist? And then I was like, started joking about, like, that was a good idea, like that would be fun to do for them. but I didn't want to start a business. I was very much comfortable with my disability and nursing, and yeah, but then I guess it just built inside me, and one day I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna help a lot more people than I'm currently doing. And through traveling, we can also impact in a bigger way. Like we can meet people on the road. They can meet people who have a disability or autistic, and connect with them in a different way. And they can learn how they can be more accepting next time they meet someone. The same with the tourism providers. So yeah, I just jumped and now I'm here.
But it was a good jump.
Yeah, definitely.
And so 3 years, you know, that takes us back to just before pandemic hits and travel was sort of happening.
Yeah.
And then
just
it kind of mostly wasn't for a while. Where are you at now? How are things going? I've seen some awesome trips on the socials. So tell us where you're at and how things work.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously COVID was a little break. Well, it wasn't a break. We kept working. We did virtual tours. We started a local social group, and we did local trips in New South Wales when we could. And yeah, built the community and all that stuff. And when there was a break or pause in the lockdowns, we went a little bit further. And yeah, and then when lockdown, I think, completely stopped, yeah, we started traveling interstate. And now we had our first trip overseas in November. We have a team of 15 in total, including Bruno over there. A great team.
Bruno's representing.
Bruno's a legend. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, we have lots of trips in the pipeline. People are finding us around Australia, and they connect, or they get in touch from overseas, and they want to travel, like they want to connect, and yeah, it's cool. That's where we're at.
And that's huge, having an overseas trip again. That's massive.
We just did our first Melbourne trip as well.
And you did Perth one sort of late last year as well. Was it Western Australia, Perth?
Oh yeah, we've done lots in Australia, but Melbourne was the first trip departing from Melbourne.
Right. Okay.
So it's setting up.
Awesome. Yep. And so, how have you? There's a lot going on there. How have you designed both the service or solution you provide, as well as your business model, to be inclusive? How have you approached that? What's obviously a lot of lived experience and direct understanding and empathy with the context and people experiencing people with disability. How have you actually gone through that process of designing this whole thing out?
The first thing I did was, because I knew my sister and I had worked with a few others who were young, but I didn't know, like, if you met one person who's autistic, you met one person, like everyone's different. So I started volunteering first for 8 months in an autism community group. We were playing Uno every Wednesday. And then I learned a little bit more about, what are their struggles, and we're chatting and like, how are they, what's going on for them. And then I worked a bit for a travel company for people with complex disabilities. And I learned a lot about accessibility traveling there, but it was a very different target market. So, and then I started, I started researching a lot. I followed tags on Instagram, learned what are they like, what are their struggles through social media. And it was like, I've learned so much through social media. Just following, like seeing their memes, like you understand what's going on for them. And so how can you make the service accessible to them based on their needs? So I started like writing questions to them on Instagram as well. In the beginning, I was like, oh, probably no one's going to fill out the survey. So I wrote some questions on Instagram, and they gave me so much insight about like why aren't they traveling, what is difficult with traveling, how can we make it easier for you, and would you do it? Yeah, so we got a lot of insights just from asking those who lived experience, and that was super helpful. And then yeah, we went on the way. In the beginning I thought that like the idea was that, oh, we'll bring like 2 people together and then we'll match them with the perfect guide or like the right guide. But I learned that what they wanted wasn't necessarily just to travel. They wanted to connect with people. They wanted to build friendships. So instead of having like 2 people, we started doing like medium-sized groups, not huge groups because that would be too overwhelming for them again. So yeah, we found like a nice medium, and then yeah, we recently started doing like pre-trip Zoom calls because we saw that a lot of them were really anxious before going away. So giving them a chance to meet each other before going, that decreased so much stress for them as well. And like going through the whole journey in the Zoom call, like what are we going to do? We're going to do this, like just understanding the pain points on the way. Yeah, that's some of it.
And there's some really interesting research techniques and modification of research techniques and that, which is pretty awesome. And as part of that, so it's great to hear, one, the level of engagement, and then how you're actively designing with those insights and designing with them for the participants as well. As part of that, what's been one of the most sort of surprising, where did that come from type insights or anything that sort of wasn't expecting that?
I don't know. Well, the first thing I learned that I'm not an expert. Like I've worked 12 years in disability now, and I'm still not an expert because I haven't lived it. So that's one thing. What else? I don't know. I'm stuck.
I also like the way that you talked about one, not being an expert, but you know, similar to what Kate was talking about. It's an ongoing journey, and every individual has a different lived experience and a different way of interacting and different set of needs. So yeah, that empathy that you're talking about, I think is awesome. A lot of that's about the experience, the solution that you're designing. Is there anything about the business model and access and designing the business model side of things to be inclusive that you've had to consider?
Definitely, and it's something that I'm still considering to work out how we can solve a few of those issues.
Any types of issues that you're willing to share?
Well, a lot of our travelers have NDS funding, but not everyone does. And it's a challenge being accessible to everyone when you have to travel, but then you need support to travel. That is more complex than another tour group where it's maybe 1 person to 20 people or something like that. So how can we make it accessible to those who doesn't access funding for it, for example? That's one big challenge that I'm trying to think of solutions for, and I have a couple of ideas. We'll see where it goes.
And so when you have those ideas, as it relates either to the business model or to the solution, how do you test that thinking? What's the process you go through? How do you do that in a safe way?
First, I go to my advisory board. They're helpful to...
Who's on your advisory board? What perspectives do they bring?
Well, we've got Neil, who Mark introduced me to. Very, very, very good. Yeah, he's got tourism background and also business coaching background, and he's very calm and composed and very very helpful in getting my thoughts or seeing it in other perspectives. And then we got a mum an autistic son who's got financial background, and another mother with a son with ADHD and also financial background. And then other than that, we continuously talk with the parents and the travelers as well, to hear their challenges too. Next thing, I want to get someone neurodivergent on the board too. Yeah, talk to you through them. Sometimes we just give something a go and see how it goes. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Awesome. And then it's been a challenging 2-3 years for everyone in every situation. A new startup in that context. What have been, and obviously you adapted during that period, what have been some of the hardest lessons you've had to learn, and how have you worked through them during extremely challenging times for everyone?
I think that things take time. Can be a bit impatient. I wish everything was done yesterday. Hiring and like getting people trained takes time as well. But yeah, it's important. What else? Big lessons. I guess, yeah, just breaking everything down sooner. Because
what does breaking everything down mean?
Into steps. Because yeah, a big idea or a big plan can seem very overwhelming to me. So when I break it down in tasks, it's a lot easier to handle. That's really awesome.
I think that applies to us all. And you know, there's a lot going on with all of those aspects, running a business, challenging times, everything else, and it's very important work that you're doing. How do you look after yourself and your own well-being while you're so focused on everyone else?
That's definitely been a journey as well. Yeah, when I started first year through COVID, I was stuck inside, working from when I got up in the morning to I went to bed. I'm sure a lot of people might have done that. And yeah, I got sick. Like I don't know, I was so stressed for some reason. My face like was swollen and I had rashes around my face. Like I was just a bit overworked potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah. I went to a doctor and he was just, you're really stressed. And he asked me why, and I said, I'm starting a business. And yeah, okay. But yeah, so then I started, taking a lot more time in nature. Sometimes still bring my laptop and sit outside and work in front of water or a view. I guess that's work-life balance, maybe.
Working in nature, it's definitely a good step.
But also trying to schedule plans with people so that I push myself to finish my work, and I work faster doing that as well. Plus, I guess a few other things that are important to me as well. So, yeah, that's what I do.
And a work in progress like all of us.
Yeah. And exercise. Yeah, before I start working, otherwise I can't focus. Yeah.
And so we're talking about this a little bit earlier, and it sort of relates to some of the stuff that Kate was talking about as well, because obviously there's digital aspects to Travengers and there's the physical world experiences and travel. What do you wish other people would do as part of designing to be inclusive as it relates to whatever their context might be and what is relevant to their organisation? What are some ways that people can do more to design for inclusion?
I think, obviously, I'm not sure who's in the room, if it's business owners or, if it's employers or just people want to be better. But I think generally learning about other communities is a big thing. And like inclusion can be something physical. It can be, a ramp, or it can be a sensory friendly room, or it can be that kind of thing, or it can be something practical like a form. If there's a sign-up process, maybe the sign-up process can be more inclusive. whether it's asking for pronouns or if it's asking for, depending on what services it is, obviously. If it's an interview, can you offer to, or give them a chance to tell them about your needs or their needs, for example, beforehand. Like I said, one of the things that I've done is using social media, because there's so much information and communities there. So if you even, like, a lot of people, I do anyways, doom scroll a lot. And if you can just go into Instagram or LinkedIn and just find a hashtag of a community that you don't know that much about, and then you follow it, and you get it up in your feed, and you'll, like, even though you're not thinking about it, you'll start learning about those communities. And when they come to you, then if you're an employer or whatever it is, or a coworker or a new friend, then you'll understand a little bit more. So that's,
This
I
was
guess,
seeing what memes they use and communicate with.
For example, memes. Or on LinkedIn, just hearing what's going on in those communities. So when they come, you'll understand at least a little bit how you can, welcome them, basically.
Awesome. And then the final question I've got for you is, now that everyone knows a bit about Travengers, how can they support you? How can they get involved? What can they do to make Travengers keep going awesome, and any people that they might have in their lives as well?
Well, we are currently raising 300K. I was like, my God.
Who's got a checkbook?
Yeah. Now, who here knows someone who's autistic or knows someone who knows someone? Can you raise your hand? Yeah, or is autistic. I'd love for you to share it with them if possible.
And what would you like them to share specifically?
Our website, follow us on Instagram, see what we do.
And the website is?
Travengers.com.au.
And it's Travengers AU on most socials, isn't it?
Yes, Travengers.au, I guess. Yeah. Huh? Oh, is it?
So get your checkbook out and for the raise, and then share the website and socials. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and we have the Travengers third birthday party in Manly on the 26th of February. So if anyone knows anyone in PR, or anyone is has someone who's autistic who wants to come along to meet us as well, that's a good opportunity to come and meet some of the team and just see what we do as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You good for questions?
Huh? Oh, okay.
Questions in the room and questions on Zoom. I will try and get the chat up on Zoom, but
yeah.
You okay to repeat the question briefly?
Oh.
Or do you want me to?
Yeah, you do it.
So with autism being a broad spectrum and not any individual of any kind anywhere is the same, how do you design for people who might have autism but are not homogenous, and it's a broad spectrum of people?
So yeah, it's a really good question. It's a hard one. Most in our groups are quite independent, but they need a little bit of support. And we've had groups where, and we try to match them so that it's likely that they might be able to build something on it, like a friendship, or that it's a good fit. So it's something that we keep in mind for if they go on a trip and they don't clash, or if they clash, that's not a good thing for anyone. Like So yeah, we when they get in touch with us, we say what kind of group or like what kind of support it is, and if it's not a fix, we either try to provide more support or see if we can offer like a one-on-one solution for a trip, or if we can help them find the perfect fit for them. So we also have like a knowledge base of like other services. So we try to refer so that they can find what's right for them. But yeah, it's tricky sometimes too, but it's been all right.
I've got a comment, not a question, from Daryl, who says, awesome work, Agnes. Well done on providing such an important service. Clappy hands. Thanks, Daryl.
Daryl.
All the way from New Zealand. Any other questions in the room? Yes, Alex. Alex is asking about volunteering opportunities at Travengers.
Yeah, that would actually be really helpful. You need a working with children check though to be able to volunteer, but I'm sure that's.
So it sounds like the short answer was a very yes.
Yes, please. We have a couple, but yeah, we'd love more. Yeah. That's good.
Awesome. Any other questions for Agnes?
Yeah.
I'll just quickly for online. So question on where funding comes from, more from payment of services as opposed to investment funding. And the question on NDIS.
So in the beginning, I just self-funded, started from scratch. I won a pitch competition, won $5,000, and that was the start of capital. And then from there we just grew it, and most of it has been NDIS, but also been a couple of small grants, and then self-funded as well.
Awesome. Any final questions? A question on traveling with Agnes's sister through Travengers.
Yeah. No, so she's in Norway. Unfortunately, she traveled with us online every week during COVID. She still does. I'm trying to get her to visit. She went on her own to the US. It's a huge thing. And we're doing our first Europe trip in May to Paris and London. So I'm trying to
hopping over to Norway.
Huh?
Hopping over to Norway, or she's going to come to
I'll try to
London
drag
and Paris?
There. Yeah. Yeah. So she knows a few in the group through that. So yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Any final questions? We're close to time, so one last one. Hello. So the questions on the broader sort of mainstream travel industry, realizing that there's an opportunity to provide services for people with disability.
Often the first reaction that we get when we get in touch is not always, but sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not sure if we can do that. And then we come and then we change our minds, which is cool. But we haven't been that much in touch with group travel companies. So I'm not sure what their reaction would be. Yeah, I like to think that when we've been there, that is a prompt for them to at least be a little bit more inclusive and maybe see that there's a market here. So maybe they should start becoming more inclusive in general. Yeah, it's a work in progress, and I'd love to impact a little bit more in the tourism industry as well.
Awesome. Well, please join me in thanking Agnes. Well played. So a quick wrap up before we do a quick cleanup here. So bottles and stuff and recycling. And then we're going to rapidly leave this space and go directly across the road down there to the dodgy old man pub on the corner, which is called the Occidental. Regulars know that we go to the Occy. We'd love to go somewhere else, but there's nowhere nearby. So the Occy it is.
And more sweet won't throw
Us being, yeah. So SydDT is the second Thursday of every month is our normal rhythm. We have our next one on the 9th of March, and the topic is designing a mentally healthy life. We won't be meeting here. Think Place is hosting on the 9th of March, and Michelle's at the back. Thanks, Michelle. So Think Place in Surrey Hills is where we'll be next month. Hit that QR code, it will go to the SydDT page so you can sign up. RSVPs, I think, should be touch and go and open. They normally open 4 weeks before the actual event. Actually, and it's actually the 9th day, so it will be open. So hit that, and I won't be here. Zoe will be hosting and emceeing. I'll be in Adelaide for the South Start convention conference. And then I'm also a founding board member of SECNA, which is the Social Enterprise Council for New South Wales and ACT. We also have a monthly meetup, and that's the first Thursday of the month. So the one on the 2nd of March is on building financially sustainable social enterprises. So if you hit that QR code, that'll go to a different page to sign up. And one way or another, oh, actually, I won't be at that one either. I'll be in Zurich for that one. So I'll see you in April. Thanks for coming. No credit. So not holiday, all work. So thanks for coming tonight. Hope you've met each other. Chat.syddt.org to continue the conversation online. And we'll be at the pub. And thanks to everyone on Zoom. Great to have you on. Great to have some participation, and see you next month / across the road. Thank you. And thanks again to Kate and to Agnes. Uh-oh. Oh, yes, and also to our sponsors, Tech Talks by 420, and also to our 4 volunteers from GA. Thank you very much.